were indicted for conduct that happened in 2015, 16, 17. In a jurisdiction that it was very hard for us to get a fair trial, Caitlin. I mean, and I know the district attorney has repeatedly said it today, this is a bread and butter case, we do this all the time. That is not true. It's just not true. It may be that they bring these types of charges regularly, business records charges, but you cannot find another case in the Manhattan District Attorney's, in the history of that office, where they did what they did here, which is charge somebody for conduct that was 7, 8 years old, somebody's personal records, right? Not corporate records, it's personal records. So this is not, I don't think, I think it's naive to say that this is like any other case that we do. What we did in this case is what we do all the time. No. And maybe it's okay. I mean, they think it's okay they did it.
Well, because I think the response to that would be, well, it's also not every day that someone running for president reimburses his attorney who paid off a woman to keep her silent. And, you know, when you say about getting a fair jury, this is where Donald Trump, I mean, you know New York well. This is where Donald Trump chose to have his businesses and spent decades of his life until just recently. I mean, that's why the case was here. I think some people would say, well, that's ridiculous that a jury couldn't put their beliefs aside. You just talked about how hard they worked in this case. Don't you think that they put their political beliefs or biases or stereotypes aside to make a fair decision here?
I don't know what they did or didn't do, but listen, Caitlin, it matters, right? Like when 100, we did it in groups of about 100 when we picked that jury. Half the jury just walked out when invited to by the judge if they couldn't be fair and impartial. So imagine if you're standing before a group of your peers, right? That's what a jury system is supposed to be. So you're standing for a group of your peers, and half of them walk out before a single question is asked, just because they have an opinion of you that is so strong they can't be fair and impartial.
But these 12, to be fair, did not.
Well, they did not, of course, but no, that's not really the point. The point isn't that 50 stayed. The point is that it's telling how many just walked out. And also the fact that President Trump did business in New York, that's not the law. The law doesn't say, well, tough luck. If that's where you do business, then that's where you're going to be tried.
He built his business here and he resided here. And I guess if you think, you know, if you talked about the testimony and when this happened, well, why didn't the cross-examination of these witnesses or what you put forward, your defense, why didn't that work? Why did it still lead to this outcome?
Well, that's a great question. If you know the answer to that, tell me. I mean, look, I think that at the end of the day, I do think it comes to something that we talk about a lot of times in our profession, where there's a bias that you have that you can't get past. I mean, that our system of justice isn't supposed to be a system where every person that walks in the courtroom knows about the case. I mean, and it sounds
but
like
it's one of those cases where you can't avoid it. I mean, no matter what jurisdiction he's tried in,
the law
everyone
doesn't
knows
say
Donald Trump.
the law doesn't say, but if you can't avoid it, tough luck, right? That's not what the law says. The law says that a person is entitled to a fair trial in front of a jury of their peers. And we just think that because of everything around the lead up to this trial, it made it very difficult for the jury to evaluate the evidence kind of independent of what they knew coming in. And we knew that, and that's not something that we've been screaming that from the rooftops.
Well, let's talk about, you said a few of your arguments on the appeal. When do you plan to file your appeal?
Well, there's a lot of, look, this is one step in the process, right? So we have motions due in a couple weeks in front of Judge Merchan, which we're going to vigorously fight and restate a lot of what I'm saying to you tonight, and other things that happened during the trial that we think just made the trial unfair, including the testimony of Ms. Daniels. If that is not successful, then as soon as we can appeal, we will. And the process in New York is there's a sentencing, and then we appeal from there.
District Attorney Bragg tonight did not directly say whether or not they are going to seek jail time for Donald Trump. Do you expect that he will?
I have no idea. Look, there's a system in place that where you rely on precedent, and somebody like President Trump should never face a jail sentence based on this conduct. And it would just kind of confirm what we've been saying all along, and a lot of people say that we're wrong and that we're missing key pieces. But if other 77-year-old first-time offenders would never be sent to prison for this conduct.
Judge Merchan will make that decision.
Correct. That's right.
Do you think the judge was fair throughout this case?
I think that there were times when we very much disagreed with what the decisions Judge Merchan made. I think there were times when we certainly appreciated that he was making decisions, but weighing both sides and making decisions based upon that. But
why did Donald Trump not ultimately take the stand here?
Well, that's a very personal question to him and to me, honestly, and it's a very difficult question. Of course he wanted to testify, and I don't say that because that's what he has said. He wanted to get his story out. I think the judge had made some decisions before the trial or the day of the trial started about what would be allowed to be asked of him by the prosecutors if he took the stand, and some of those questions were really complicated to answer because there's still appeals going on, and so there's a lot of decision points that go into whether somebody testifies. Ultimately, it's his decision, and he listened to us, and he relied on our counsel, and he reached a decision that he thought was right, which I very much agreed with.
So that means your counsel was for him to not take the stand.
I'm not going to tell you what my counsel was.
Well, you said he relied on counsel, and he went with that decision, and he didn't take the stand.
But ultimately, it was his decision.
I believe, by the way, that we actually have the motorcade coming out here, so I'm going to make sure that we get the shots of that, Steve. Okay. And for the audience here, President if you can't Trump. See it, this is President Trump and his motorcade coming out of the courthouse right now. Lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up! Fuck Trump!
Yeah. What you're seeing is President Trump's motorcade. That will head back up to Trump Tower. I believe President Trump's going to stay in Trump Tower. Maybe he might go to Bedminster. We'll see, one or the other. Can I have Raheem again? Yeah. You may hear, for audience, you may hear a little bad language in the background, okay? Raheem, President Trump's leaving right now, heading up to either Trump Tower or over to Bedminster. Continue on with your observations.
Yeah, no, I apologize for the foul language of some of those around us. Steve may be able to hear it, but it is a tiny, loud and...
Inside Donald Trump's prison cell, the surroundings are like any other small, enclosed space. The walls are gray concrete, and a narrow cot with a thin mattress is the only piece of furniture. A tiny metal sink and toilet combo sit in one corner, while a small barred window allows a sliver of natural light to filter in. The sound of clanking bars echoes through the air as guards patrol the hallway outside.
What? What is...
President Trump is 76 years old. He will die in federal prison.
Trump spends his days pacing the limited floor space. The once powerful man now finds himself in a place of confinement.
Are the Trumps gurus? Are they sort of business people? They got a business past? Did Daddy Trump at one stage used to be somebody that was giving out business advice on a TV show called The Apprentice? Or have I got that wrong? He's now known as a convicted felon. Surely that can't be the same person. Anyway, I thought those who do business have one golden rule sometimes: to take their time before they come to a decision or a reaction. Sleep on it could be an expression. You know what I mean? 40 winks, we'll get back to you in the morning. In Dumb Trump Jr.'s case, clearly that message hasn't got home. Never it's like, grab his phone and whinge. Seriously? Does he really think whining into his phone for a few likes on social media is going to sort the situation out? Methinks not. But hey, what do I know?
Obviously, just a sad day for America. Crazy what's going on in this country. Obviously, probably wasn't expecting anything different out of this jury with this biased judge whose daughter's profiteering from this stuff. My father's not allowed to talk about the people. Michael Cohen, who's lied to every congressional body, every banker, every press, his own wife, went to jail for lying, is a upstanding citizen who probably told the truth on this day. Well, the one time he told the truth, folks, it was this time. Absolute freaking insanity. But I'll say this, the Democrats have succeeded in their years-long quest to turn our country into an absolute crap hole. They've done that. They've been trying for a long time. There's literally no other way about it at this point. They've tried for a long time, and they're getting it. We are getting exactly what these people have voted for. and it's not going to work out well. If you think they can do it to Trump, they can do it to anyone, okay? I'm going to be going, I'm going to go up now to my studio. I'm going to get on Rumble for my
fight back. We need to be subpoenaing Judge Merchan and his daughter. We need to understand what are the connections between big Democratic money and this sham prosecution. Did George Soros ever talk to Alvin Bragg about using his power to go after Donald Trump? We need to get to the bottom of it, and when we find wrongdoing, we need to be willing to actually punish it. That is the only language that I think these people are going to understand, is that if they do this, if they turn the American system of justice into
being read. As you can see on the screen here, count 1, guilty. Count 2, the former president found guilty. Count 3, guilty. We await count 4 here. As you can see, the first 3 counts, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, found guilty of 3 felony counts so far. The 4-person in that courtroom. Count 4, guilty. Count 5, guilty. Count 6, guilty. As we continue to enter in what we're learning from the courtroom, it's our belief that first 19 counts, I'm being told, the former president has been found guilty of. Counts 20 through 23 found guilty as well. So correct me, control room, all the way through count 23 now found guilty. We are now up to count 26 and count 27 found guilty as well. So again, I'm going to pause here. He's been found guilty 31 counts now of guilty as we wait for the graphic to catch up to the reporting coming from the courthouse. Count 33 and counts 34 coming in right now. Guilty on all counts. This jury in New York City, a jury of his peers, finding the former president guilty on every single felony count brought against him by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Aaron Katursky outside the courthouse. Let's go to you for first reaction.
But he's going to trial 2 different federal trials. This first one next week.
An incredible verdict. Fox News clown Trey Gowdy to me always looks like, the former president of the United States to do Anderson Cooper, I don't think even they would be able to replicate me. What words we use? Clown? Wow. You think I'm being polite, or you think I'm being sarcastic? In comparison to the man on the bike,
been massing in the park across the street from the courthouse, just a whooping cheer, and they continue to make a lot of noise. There have been supporters of the former president here as well. It looks like many of them are hanging in there, but are remaining silent as the former president has been convicted on all 34 counts of wrongdoing.
They should be able to get the other ones really quickly. So my tendency would be to think the longer that it goes on, the better it is for the defense, because we shouldn't delude ourselves into thinking they're having a hard time working through 34 counts. They really only have to answer 1, and if that really should be the answer.
They've got some factual differences in dates and times and those kinds of things, but the underlying essence of what they are is essentially the same.
He says no.
Let's play this now from James Comey, because he's got a feeling about how this trial is going to go.
I've tried a lot of jury cases, and I know you can't fully tell, even if you've been in the courtroom the whole time, but it seems to me a very strong case. I think a high likelihood of conviction, some likelihood of a hung jury, almost 0 of an acquittal.
Okay, is that kind of where you guys are at here, too? Do you think, good chance of hung jury, no chance of acquittal, chance of conviction?
I think an acquittal would be tough. That's my judgment, and that's not a comment on the facts so much as it is where we are in terms of the jury instructions and the rulings that took place pre-trial and during the trial. I just think it's headed that way. I've always thought it would be a hung jury. I think Andy and Professor Turley and I were debating whether it be 10-2, 11-1, 9-3, but I don't see an acquittal.
Egregious use of the criminal justice system.
That's not a comment on the facts.
People say, I had no intention of voting for
the way
Donald Trump, and now
Merchan.
I am. And then if you ask the Trump campaign what's happening, they literally broke their online donation portal because people were rushing to the internet to give them money in the minutes after the verdict. So I think there's a real chance here This is going to massively backfire on the Democrats and help Donald Trump.
Our jury in Manhattan, and that's not I'm not being disparaging to the jurors, man. They were great. They showed up on time every day. They were committed. They paid attention. But we're in a situation where we had a very limited number of people we could strike, and most of the folks, overwhelming number of folks, had a very strong opinion of President Trump, and it wasn't positive. And so imagine you, Jesse, going to trial facing 34 felony counts and 100 people walk in the room. That's just the reality of New York City.
And that's the